Bruce, what's the likelihood that the Rena could break up over the next 24 to 48 hours?
We don't know. We are monitoring the vessel. It's damaged. It's in the precarious position it was in some time ago. There's some new damage that's been identified with it. We're going to be watching it closely.
Are they able to stay on board? How long the sailors are able to stay on board?
They'll only be there for today. They'll be coming off tonight. It's time safe to keep people on, but they have put on additional sensors which will give us a better picture of how the vessel's moving.
Yeah, talk us through how dangerous it is for them out there at the moment.
Well, there's a higher sea state, so there's the vessel's creaking and groaning. You've heard some of the footage around when the vessel was nice. It was actually very calm conditions, and the vessel was creaking and groaning. And so that will be amplified now that there's more movement in it. There's this new buckling and then fracture in the hull. So the sailors are clearly concerned about the state of the vessel. As we know, you don't quite know what's going to happen with the vessel. It's sat there for quite some time with quite a bit of wave action buffeting it. It may push it on more, it may separate, it may fall into deeper water. We just don't know. We have to be watching for the next 24 to 36 hours.
Is this as bad as the weather situation's been since she ran aground 28 days ago?
We had the bad weather period on the 10th and 11th, so it's similar pattern to that. That's when we had the release of oil from start at number 3, and we lost some containers at that time. So it appears to be similar to that.
And in terms of staying attached, it's just survive that.
Who knows? We'll be watching and monitoring the vessel. It's a damaged vessel. It's sitting on a reef, and it's sustained more damage.
Have those sailors on board actually been able to attach those tracking devices to the containers that have dangerous materials inside?
There are 4 containers, dangerous goods containers on the deck. Those are actually empty dangerous goods containers, so they've got residue in it, so that's residue of hydrogen peroxide. So they haven't got markers on them, but they will in all likelihood float.
We've seen those the crack in the hull, the original one. How bad is the damage now compared to what we've already seen?
If you think about a piece of metal that you've been working and bending to try and snap, that's what it looks like. So it's a wavy part of it, so where the hull has been moving backwards and forwards, and it's got a stress fracture inside that area where it's moving.
And am I right in saying that divers have found damage underneath?
I saw some video from the divers, and it looks like someone's just ripped a part of the base of the hull out. And you'd expect that with a vessel going up onto a reef at 17 odd knots. So it's not something you'd be surprised about.
Is it amazing then that she has managed to stay together for so long, considering the damage she's sustained?
There's it's an unknown. What's holding it together. There's a lot of bits and pieces on the internals of the vessel. Remembering that the moment the first crack happened, that releases a lot of pressure, so it can actually flex a lot more. So there's so many unknowns. What's it actually sitting on? How much of it's being supported, and in what way? Is there a pinnacle of rock into the hole? There's so many intangibles we don't know, and we wait for quite some time.
Has any more oil leaked from the ship?
I'll pass to my colleague.
Since the casualty first went aground, there's been a continual seepage of weathered oil that is currently being trapped between the top of the reef and the bottom of the ship. And that's very much been the focus of our on-water operations. Once that oil's away from the vessel, it's very much at the mercy of the weather. Its behaviour is reasonably predictable. The older the oil becomes, it does lose its specific gravity and goes subsurface, which means although some predictability is still there, it doesn't necessarily come up exactly where we expect it. However, what I can assure you is, since 3 o'clock in the morning of that October the 5th, which seems a long time ago, the entire planning and operating side of its operation has been run by nationally, internationally recognised people with a lot of experience in the Gulf of Mexico and other overseas spills. We're using methodology that is internationally recognised. We're dealing with a substance that we know about. In this particular situation, we're dealing with an area that we already have experience of having done this. Our volunteers who were very enthusiastic in the beginning are now essentially well-trained responders. They have they had response experience greater than some full-time trained people around the world who would be extremely envious of the skills these people have. So I'd like to reassure you that this isn't a bunch of people with buckets running down to the foreshore and collecting oil. This is a well-managed, safe event being conducted in a protracted and safe manner.
If Rena does break apart in the next 24 to 48 hours, is it a given that the oil, the 350 tonnes of oil still on board, will seep out, or could it stay in that tank, or do we know the likelihood of that?
The likelihood of that exists as much now as it did when she first ran aground. We're not planning for a 350 tonne release. We are planning for oil coming ashore. The volume is immaterial. The approach to responding to it is exactly the same. It's not a piecemeal response. We ramped up this operation from day one based on the maximum fuel figures that you were first given. That continues to be the same. We deal with the oil that comes ashore.